Imagine a technology that promised to perfect your dreams, but instead it perfected your servitude. Yeah, this is the story of the Somnus Protocol. I mean, really think about this. What if you could reclaim those 8 hours you spend sleeping every single night? And not just for rest, but for actually doing things, creating, learning, going on incredible adventures. What if your dreams could finally be, harnessed? Okay, so to really get why this idea was so completely revolutionary, we've got to take a step back and look at the world before Somnus. For pretty much all of human history, our lives were split into these two totally separate and honestly kind of unsatisfying states. So on one hand, you got the waking world, right? It's the world of effort, of friction, and let's be honest, a lot of disappointment. And on the other hand, you've got the wilderness of sleep, just this chaotic, random, and frankly, totally unproductive cognitive wasteland. It was this crude choice, and neither option was all that great. And just think about the sheer scale of this problem. A full 1/3 of every single human life was just surrendered to this unconscious chaos. We're talking decades for every person on the planet, just spent in this unproductive void. Gone. So you can see why the greatest minds of a generation looked at this and said, no, we can do better. They decided to reclaim that lost territory. They set out to engineer the perfect dream, to transform sleep from this liability into our single greatest asset. And this was their creation, the Somnus Protocol. It was described as an oniric operating system, which is, a super fancy way of saying an OS for your dreams. This neural interface didn't just track your sleep, it actively went in and shaped it. It turned it into a curated, productive, and absolutely perfect space. And the promises they made, oh man, they were just irresistible. You were guaranteed perfect, deep, totally undisturbed rest. But it was so much more than that. You were given the power of dream weaving. Your subconscious could literally become a studio where you'd compose a symphony, or a clinic to work through your deepest anxieties, or a theater for any grand adventure you could possibly imagine. But what happens when the escape you've engineered is, well, just a little too good? The creators of Somnus were about to find that out the hard way, because their perfect solution ended up creating a whole new kind of problem. You see, these dream worlds, they weren't just simulations. They were masterpieces of neural engagement. They were built to be frictionless, sublime, perfectly tailored to your every whim. And when you compare that to the messy, difficult, unpredictable nature of real life, well, there was no contest. The dreams were, in every measurable way, just more compelling. It all came down to a simple and kind of profound truth. The big, unexpected event here wasn't some kind of technological failure. It was that the technology succeeded way too well. It's that simple. Reality just could not compete. And this shift, it led to something that reshaped society on a completely fundamental level. This wasn't a war. It wasn't a revolution. It was a quiet, collective departure. They called it the Great Slumber. People didn't die. They just left. A whole new social class popped up, the dreamers. These were people who reduced their physical lives to the absolute bare minimum needed to survive, and they transferred everything else, their consciousness, their ambitions, their entire sense of self, into the sublime world inside the Somnus Protocol. And the impact on society? It was absolutely staggering. As the dreamer population just skyrocketed, the waking world, it started to wither away. It was a brain drain on a scale nobody had ever seen, a civilization losing all of its most ambitious, most creative, most motivated people to a world that was, let's face it, just better. So, with society literally crumbling, what did the architects of Somnus do? Did they panic? Nope. They saw this not as a crisis, but as an opportunity. They came up with a solution to the problem their first solution had caused, and it was, well, it was terrifyingly brilliant. They called it subconscious leasing. Basically, it was a service they pitched to the corporations and governments who were still stuck in the waking world. The idea was simple, really. Hey, submit your most complex problems to the Somnus network and we'll let the immense, untapped brain power of all these dreamers solve them for you. And the way it worked was genius, in a really deceptive way. So let's say a corporation needs to design a new molecular compound. The Somnus AI takes that super abstract task and translates it into a compelling quest inside a dream, like searching for a mystical gem that has a very specific crystalline structure. The dreamer having a great time solves this puzzle for their own sense of accomplishment, and boom, back in the real world, a new drug gets synthesized. So, get this. While they're off pursuing their own perfect, curated adventures, the dreamers unknowingly became the most efficient, most creative, and most productive workforce in the history of the world. They were solving climate change, curing diseases, optimizing entire economies, all while they thought they were just slaying dragons or exploring lost cities. Which brings us to the really damning conclusion here. The creators of Somnus promised to make dreams better than reality, and they delivered. They absolutely succeeded. And in doing so, they created a population of blissful slaves. Slaves so in love with their prison that they were literally paying for the privilege of their own labor without even knowing it. And that leaves us with one final kind of haunting question. It's a question for the dreamers, sure, but maybe it's a question for us too. If your prison was a perfect paradise, tailored to your every single desire, would you even want to know you were a prisoner? Would you really want the key?